Okay, I hope I'm audible to all my students who are attending this online lesson for the CBSE Class 12 Economics course. We are going to start with a very interesting topic within the macroeconomy module for Class 12 Economics. This is the government budget. So every year we see that first week of February, the government announces its annual budget, which talks about the spending patterns of the government, the revenue collections of the government. Okay, so we are now going to understand as economists what is the government budget, what are the objectives of the government for preparing a budget, when is the government budget set to be in balance, when is it set to be in deficit, when is it set to be in surplus, and this topic is also a very important topic from the class 12 board examination point of view. So in this lecture, I'm going to introduce to all students what is the government budget and what are the objectives for preparing a budget. Okay, we're going to try and keep it interactive. I'm going to make all students write down notes. So those who are attending this lesson, please make sure that you are also making notes. Okay, so let's quickly start with our understanding of the government budget. The notes I'm making you write, I'm also going to supplement them with my printed notes. Okay, so if you are making these notes along with the notes I will be providing in the PDF format, you don't need to open up any books. The notes I'm making you write in the live class along with the notes I will be providing you in my PDF version are just sufficient in helping you prepare for your board exams as far as the content is concerned. Okay, so let's quickly start with the discussion of budget in this online lesson. So let's look at, let me write the main broader topic. This is government budget. Government budget. Let's first of all understand what is the government budget. So I can write that the government budget is an annual statement. It is an annual statement of the systematic estimated receipts and expenditures of the government over the fiscal year running from 1st April to 31st March. We know that the financial year in India starts from 1st of April and ends by 31st March. That means during this particular fiscal year, the government budget is going to capture what are the estimated receipts of the government. Receipts, we are going to talk about receipts later. It will tell us what are the tax revenue collections of the government, what are the non-tax revenue collections of the government, where did the government spend money, where is the government planning to spend its money. Okay, should the government spend more on health or infrastructure or education, or should the government spend more on defense? So when we talk about the budget of the government, it is going to tell us what are the estimated receipts of the government and what are the estimated expenditures of the government over the financial year running from 1st April to 31st March. Okay, now let us understand what are the objectives of preparing a budget. When the government is preparing a budget, what are the reasons for the same? So moving to the next page, I can always come back to previous pages. Okay, let's look at objectives for preparing a budget. Objectives for preparing a budget. The very first objective for preparing a budget, which is a very important objective is that the government wants to reallocate resources. The government wants to reduce inequalities in the economy. It should not be the case that the rich in the economy are becoming richer, but the poor are becoming even more poorer. No government wants that. All governments aim at promoting regional equalities. That means all people living in that state or that city should be getting access to all the resources. It should not be the case that some people are having a greater access to resources, some people are not having access to those resources. So let's write point number 1. The first reason for preparing a budget is reallocation of resources. Reallocation of resources, or I can write removal of regional inequalities. Removal of regional inequalities. Okay, this is the first objective for preparing a budget. Let's write some important points on this first part. So I can write that the government has to allocate resources. The government has to allocate resources through budget to promote social welfare, to promote the social welfare and the economic conditions of the people. And the economic conditions, let me write that more clearly, economic conditions of the people. So the government prepares a budget to make sure that the resources are allocated in such a way that the social welfare is promoted. Everyone in the economy is better off, is having access to resources. Okay, poverty goes down. So I can write the next point that this was within point 1, this was point A. I can further write point B. The budget should aim at balanced regional development. It should aim at the balanced regional development of the country or the states. Whether we talk about the union budget or the budgets which are prepared by states as well for their own local allocations. Okay. When we talk about the budget, particularly the union budget, which is prepared by the center, should aim at regional development, balanced regional development of the country. It should not be the case that some regions within the country are developing much faster, some regions within the country are not developing at all. That should not be the case. All the regions within the country should experience balanced development. Okay, so I can also write that this needs more expenditure. This needs more expenditure on the development of backward regions. On the development of backward regions. Okay, that means the government should spend more on backward regions, those who are having lack of access to nutrition, those who are having lack of access to healthcare facilities, those who are backward regions where there is illiteracy among the people in terms of education. These regions where infrastructure is lacking, the government should spend more. So balanced regional development can happen only when the government also spends more on the backward regions. Okay, so what does the government usually do in order to support development of backward regions? The government declares some regions as special economic zones. So let's talk about that. Coming to the next page. Within point number B, I can write that the government the government declares some backward regions. The government declares some backward regions as special economic zones, and provides special economic zones. We should all know the short form SEZs, special economic zones. Okay. Within the special economic zones, the government provides infrastructure. The government provides infrastructure such as electricity at subsidized rates, electricity, transportation, subsidies. We have tax-free holidays. All these the government does in backward regions to support their development. These regions are called special economic zones. So I can write tax-free holidays, etc., to the industries located in these regions. To the industries located in these regions. Okay, so this is point B getting continued. What we are trying to say is that in order to promote balanced regional development, the government declares some regions as special economic zones. Within special economic zones, the government is going to provide infrastructure facilities, transportation, electricity, subsidies, tax-free holidays, where industries working in special economic zones are exempted from paying taxes. Okay, why is the government doing all this? So that industries in the special economic zones are motivated to produce more and generate employment in the backward regions. So I can write as a result, employment opportunities will go up. As a result, employment opportunities will go up, and these backward regions would develop. And these backward regions would develop. Okay, so this is point number B getting continued, where we talked about special economic zones. Okay, so we have done point 1 completely. Now, if I go back, point 1 was talking about reallocation of resources and removing regional inequalities. The purpose for preparing a budget is to make sure that the government reallocates the resources, okay, which in turn promotes social welfare. Remember, these are the important keywords, and economic conditions of the people. The budget prepared by the government should ensure a balanced regional development. This is again an important keyword. Okay, in order to ensure balanced regional development, the government comes up with special economic zones. In these special economic zones, the government provides you with infrastructure, transportation, and all those things which we have discussed. By doing so, industries are motivated to produce more in special economic zones, which in turn leads to employment opportunities going up, thus leading to development of these backward regions. So we are done with point number 1, which was reallocation of resources. Now let's discuss the second objective for preparing a budget, which is redistribution of income and wealth. Redistribution of income and wealth. The government also wants to redistribute income from the rich to the poor. So I can write within this point number A, through the budget, the government redistributes income and wealth the government redistributes income and wealth to reduce the inequalities. To reduce the inequalities. The budget, I can write this as point number B, that the budget should aim. In India, we have a progressive tax structure where more rich you are, higher proportion of your income you pay as tax. This is called a progressive tax structure. So I can write that the budget should aim to collect higher taxes. The budget should aim to collect higher taxes from the rich by increasing the tax rates, or by imposing new taxes, be it either direct or indirect taxes. We have talked about what are direct taxes, what are indirect taxes in our lessons on national income. When we were doing the national income module, this concept gets covered in the national income module. Okay, so the budget, in order to redistribute income from the rich to the poor, the budget should ideally tax the rich people more. And there are two ways to tax the rich people more: either increase the tax rate or impose new taxes. The new taxes can either be direct taxes, directly taxing their income, or indirect taxes on commodities like GST, goods and service tax. Okay, so point C, we know that in India, there is progressive taxation. In India, there is progressive taxation. That is, as income increases, as the income increases, tax rate also increases. Tax rate also increases. Okay, so I can say that the tax rate should be the least on the poor. Taxes should be the least on the poor. Only then the government can redistribute the income. Okay, so revising these 3 points first before I move on to the fourth point. Objective of budget is to redistribute income and wealth. One objective of the government is to reduce the inequalities. The government redistributes income and wealth to reduce the inequalities. Okay, how does the government do that? The government imposes higher taxes on the rich. There are two ways to impose higher taxes on the rich: either increase the tax rates or impose more kind of direct and indirect taxes like wealth tax, luxury tax, etc. Okay, so in India, we follow a progressive taxation structure. That means the more higher your income, higher is the tax rate imposed on you. Okay, people should know the income tax slabs. We are going to discuss that also towards the end. Towards the end of this topic, we are also going to talk about the tax structure in India. Okay, taxes should be the least on the poor. Moving on to the next point, point B. Within point 2, the sub-point B, I can write that the tax collected from the rich, the taxes collected from the rich are spent through the budget. They are spent through the budget on schemes which benefit the poor. On the schemes which benefit the poor, like free education, free education, medical facilities, schools, training facilities, on training the labor force, and public works, etc. These are some of the areas where the government spends the money. Where is the money coming from? Taxes imposed on the rich. Whatever taxes are collected from the richer people are then used by the government to spend on schemes which are going to benefit the poor. The government comes up with yojanas providing free education to the poor, free medical facilities or subsidized medical facilities, free schooling or schooling with uh, very low fee, training facilities to train the unemployed, public works. So all these are areas where the government spends the taxes received from the rich to benefit the poor. Okay, so this way I can write this way inequalities inequalities of income are reduced. This way the inequalities of income are reduced and wealth won't be concentrated in few hands. Wealth won't be concentrated in few hands, making the rich richer and the poor poorer. Making the rich richer and the poor poorer. So when the government is going to tax the rich people more, and the government is going to use that money to spend on schemes which are going to benefit the poor, by doing all this, the government will reduce inequalities of income. So we are going to avoid that situation where the rich are becoming even more richer and the poor are becoming even more poor. The income disparities will be reduced. Okay, so hoping students have understood this. This was the second objective. Within the second objective, we have talked about 4 points: point A, point B, point C, and then point D. We do it point wise. The answers are always going to be well structured. And then let's look at point number 3, the third objective of preparing a budget. So moving on to the next page, the third objective for preparing a budget is economic stability and price stability. Economic stability and price stability. The government also aims to ensure that prices are stable in the economy. It should not be the case that prices are rising too much. We all know inflation, right? Inflation is continuous and persistent rise in prices. Inflation not only hurts the lower income class, it also has a drastic impact on the middle class. Government needs to make sure that the economy is stable and prices are not rising rapidly. So I can write point A within this: through the budget, the government tries to prevent business fluctuations. The government tries to prevent business fluctuations and maintain economic stability that is a high level of employment and price stability. The government wants to ensure that jobs are created in the economy to serve the rapidly growing population. When population is increasing, there should be a higher level of employment. Youngsters should find employment in the economy. Prices should be stable. It should not be the case that prices are rapidly rising, thus impacting the lower income and the middle income class. Okay, so the government uses the budget to avoid business fluctuations, because when businesses are doing very well, jobs are created in the economy. When businesses start doing bad, then people lose jobs in the economy. So business fluctuation should not happen, because business fluctuations can affect employment, and that can affect your prices. Remember, in macroeconomics, variables are often interconnected with each other. So the government through the budget aims to avoid business fluctuations so that there is high level of employment and prices are pretty much stable. Point B, if there is inflation, remember inflation in macroeconomics, we are going to cover this in the aggregate demand, aggregate supply module as well. When we talk about determination of income and employment, inflation is a continuous and persistent rise in prices. It happens because of excess demand. If there is excess aggregate demand in the economy, it increases the prices. It puts upward pressure on the prices. So if there is inflation or excess demand, we have covered this in our lessons on determination of income and employment as well. If there is inflation or excess demand in the economy, what will the government do? The government will have to reduce the demand to reduce inflation. How will the government reduce demand? The government will increase taxes. The government will stop subsidies. The objective will be to cut down on spending. When there is excess demand in the economy, the government will take action through the budget by cutting the spending. When people will spend less, demand will automatically fall. Inflation will automatically be corrected. So if there is inflation or excess demand in the economy, I can write that the government through the budget increases all the taxes and stops unproductive subsidies. This reduces the purchasing power. This reduces the purchasing power of the people. This reduces the purchasing power of the people and keeps inflation in check. Okay, so what we learn from point B is that if there is inflation in the economy, it means inflation happens because of excess demand. Excess demand leads to inflation. The objective of the government should be to reduce demand. You can reduce demand by lowering the spending. When will households spend less? When the government increases taxes or stops giving you unproductive subsidies. In both these cases, spending will fall. When spending will fall, excess demand will vanish. When excess demand will vanish, inflation will be in check. It will not rise. The opposite happens in case of a recession. So I can move on to the next page and I can write within part 3.C. I can write if there is deflation, or I can write if there is recession or deficient demand, the government through the budget will now aim to increase the aggregate demand. How can you increase the aggregate demand? You can increase it by motivating people to spend more. How can you motivate the people to spend more? By cutting down on taxes or by providing subsidies. Both these are going to motivate people to spend more. So if there is recession or deficient demand, the government through the budget the government through the budget reduces all taxes and provides subsidies which in turn increases the purchasing power of the people, thus causing an increase in aggregate demand. Since I used the word inflation, let me use the word deflation instead of a recession. So instead of recession, let me use the word deflation. Deflation happens when there is a continuous and persistent fall in prices. Inflation is a continuous and persistent rise in price. Deflation is a continuous or a persistent fall in price. When prices fall continuously. Prices fall continuously when there is deficient or lack of demand. When there is lack of demand, what should the government do? The government should cut down on taxes so that people start spending more. The government should start providing subsidies so that people start spending more. When people start spending more, automatically it leads to an increase in aggregate demand and corrects the deflation in the economy. Okay, so hoping students have understood this. We have done 3 sub-points within the third objective. Okay, the third objective was economic stability and price stability. And we had learned that the government should prevent business fluctuations in order to ensure that there is high level of employment and price stability. If there are two situations, we have seen what will the government do. If there is inflation which happens because of excess demand, the government will take objectives to cut down on demand. Government can cut down on demand by increasing taxes and removing the unproductive subsidies, which will reduce the purchasing power of the people and will keep inflation in check. On the other hand, if there is deflation or deficient demand, the government is going to aim at reducing the taxes and providing the subsidies, which in turn will increase the purchasing power of the people, thus increasing the aggregate demand and keeping deflation in check. Okay, now we look at the fourth objective. This is quite easy. The government also prepares a budget to manage public enterprises. So this is the fourth objective of preparing a budget, management of public enterprises. Management of the public enterprises. So through the budget, the government undertakes commercial activities. The government undertakes various commercial activities like heavy manufacturing, power generation, railways, etc. That means the government also has to manage all these departments. So the government needs to decide how much budget should be allocated to the heavy manufacturing sector, like iron and steel, etc. How much budget should be allocated to power generation? How much budget should be allocated to the railways? So when I talk about management of public enterprises, the government also needs to, through the budget, decide how much money should be put to railways, managing railways, how much money should be put to power generation, how much money should be put in supporting heavy steel industries, and so on. So in order to develop these commercial activities, the government needs to decide how much money should be put every year to their development. That is another reason for preparing a budget. Then the fifth objective of preparing a budget is also to manage agriculture and industry. So development of agriculture and industry. Development of agriculture and industry. So I can write that the budget should also aim to promote agriculture. The budget should also aim to promote agriculture and industry by providing subsidies. The government provides subsidies for development of agriculture and industry. Okay, so this is also important. And the last objective for preparing a budget is to ensure maximum employment opportunities. So provision, let me write this more clearly for all students, provision of maximum employment opportunities. Provision of maximum employment opportunities. Okay, so I can say that the budget should also aim to provide maximum employment opportunities. It should also aim to provide maximum employment opportunities and special employment schemes for the poor. The government, we all know, comes up with yojanas to ensure that the poor people in the economy are getting jobs, are getting employed. Okay, so the budget should also aim to ensure that sufficient jobs are created in the economy which can help to fight poverty. Okay, so these are the 6 important objectives as to why the government prepares a budget. Okay, so I stop in this particular online lesson. What we have done in this lesson, we have introduced the concept of budget. We have talked about what are the reasons or objectives for preparing a budget. Okay, in the next lesson, we are going to discuss the components of the union budget. Components of the union budget. Very important lesson it's going to be. Okay, this is something we are going to discuss in the next online lesson. Components of the union budget. So I stop in this online lesson. I hope all students attending this lesson have understood what we have covered so far. Any doubts you have, you can please unmute your mics and ask. You can get in touch with me for doubts on call or WhatsApp. You can also get in touch with me on mail at divineschoolofeconomics@gmail.com. Okay, you can drop a mail to fix a doubt lesson at divineschoolofeconomics@gmail.com. Okay, so this is where I stop in this online lesson.